There it is. Very good. All right. All right, everybody, welcome to our second webinar. This is a cool time. We were pleasantly surprised at our last one, the turnout that came, and allegedly it was helpful for some of you folks. So we're happy to hear that. I'm one of your hosts, John Kohler, publisher here, and Danielle is the other host. Danielle's our design director. She's waving.
No relation.
No, that is not true. Fortunately, she takes after her mother. Our purpose here, and these two guys we're going to introduce in a second, they believe in this, and that is to educate authors, to help authors find their way. And they've done a pretty fine job of doing that. That's what we're going to talk about today, marketing. We will be tag teaming. We're not trying to confuse you. Danielle and I will be tag teaming, and then so will the two authors, our panelists, Tom and Bill. You can ask questions, all you folks out there who are watching. If you have a question for Tom or Bill or both of them, just write it. Danielle's going to keep track of that.
There's a Q&A button at the bottom. You can write your questions there, and then I'll be looking through and occasionally asking questions.
All right, we're going to introduce these guys, and then we're going to start slinging questions at them to get to the good stuff. Danielle, you're going to introduce Mr. Canady.
Yep. All right. So Bill Canady is the author of the 80/20 CEO, Take Command of Your Business in 100 Days, which is his book that just came out recently. He's been doing very, very well. He's going to share his strategies on that. And going back to his beginnings, he grew up, in his own words, dirt poor in a tiny farm town in North Carolina, which we like to say since my sister and her husband live down there. He joined the Navy straight after high school and later worked his way up into sales jobs and graduated summa cum laude from Elmhurst and later received an MBA from Chicago's Booth School of Business. He's also the creator of the Profitable Growth Operating System and CEO of not one, but two private equity firms. Did I get all that, Bill? That sound good? Did I miss anything? You got a long CV.
No, I think you did just perfect. But I like to think of myself more as trailer trash and just dirt.
All right.
I like it.
All right. Moving on.
Yeah. Okay, here's Thomas Donohoe. You can call him Tom. He'll answer to pretty much anything. He has done very well. It's kind of similar to Bill in that sense. And by the way, both of these guys come out of business, and I mean a big business side of things here. And, you know, it is amazing. Tom, when did you sign on? Remind me.
With you?
Yeah.
Oh gosh, 2019. No, 2018.
Okay. It's been a good run, and we're going to talk to Tom about some of the things that have worked for him. Danielle, I'm going to get out of this sharing here so I can talk about some of his stuff. He's like Bill in that. He's like Bill in that sense. We don't have time to go through all the accolades and awards, but here's a few. 2 decades, meaning he's definitely younger than us, Bill. Executing and managing digital strategies. He's the CEO and founder of Level Agency. He earned a bachelor's in finance at Penn State and later attended Carnegie Mellon Business School, which I don't know anything about that school, but that sounds like it's smart. Tom's a member of YPO. That is Young Professional Organization. Is that right? Did I get that right?
Yeah, terrible name, good organization.
I know. I've been to some. He's been recognized in the top 10 digital marketing agency in Inc. magazine's Inc. 500. He was Ernst & Young's Entrepreneur of the Year. Welcome to both of you. We're glad you're here.
Your camera appears to be off, just so you know, or frozen.
My camera?
Yep.
You never look better, John.
Dang.
Yeah, I suggest we just continue, and
Yeah,
you'll be like the voice of God.
All right. Well, I'll start us off with the first question. Both of your books are more directed towards CEOs and senior level executives, but obviously the principles and strategies in your book can still be applied to, somebody trying to sell a smaller product such as a book. So, how did you adjust the strategies, or how would you suggest someone adjust the strategies from your book to sell a product like a book? Bill, we can start with you.
Oh, that's interesting. So I've tried so many different things, and I think there's two pieces you have to answer. So the first one is you want to build some type of social credibility. So they see it and are familiar with it. I think it's probably the same reason that real estate agents buy the bus benches, right? So the names is somehow familiar. So when you are looking for it and you're in the mood to buy, there's an opportunity for them to find it. So one is getting credibility around your known name. And then the second piece is making sure it's wherever they're going to be buying that. And typically in today's world, that's going to be on Amazon. And the things that you want to do there is do some type of advertising, which I'm sure we'll get into.
Tom,
How about you? Yeah.
your thoughts?
So I cheated. My background, I guess, second chapter of my career, I was the founder and CEO of a digital marketing agency. And I ran that for a dozen years, sold it about 3 years ago. So I had written the book, thanks to John, with John's help and his under his purview, around 2019, towards like the end of my tenure at the agency. Well, like what we did and what I do for a living and what I think, I don't know much about much, and I'm pretty terrible at most things in business, but within the small world of digital marketing, within that small ecosystem, I'm one of the better ones, one of the better humans in the English speaking world. So like in that little world, I'm pretty good. So I can get pretty tactical in terms of exactly what playbook I ran, because it's what we use for every other client to sell lower price goods, and what we would classify as e-commerce. So on the scale of like spending money and selling stuff, you've got B2B on one end and you've got e-commerce on the other. E-com, you want to show someone an ad, have them click on it, go to a thing, put it into a shopping cart and buy it. Brand marketing for high price goods, like you don't see an ad for a Ford and go buy a Ford, right? And then in the far end is B2B, where sales cycles take quarters or years. So ostensibly what we're talking about, if the direct question is, how do you sell a book and what do you do? Specifically, you're running paid ads. And again, I can go down the rabbit hole on this one. You're running paid ads on Facebook, Instagram, and you can test TikTok these days. But the lion's share of my sales in the first month came from paid ads on Facebook and Instagram. Now, there are some nuances to that. The creative can't suck. The good news is, since I wrote my book with under Cola Press in 2019, Meta, that owns Instagram, so Facebook and Instagram, I hate saying AI, but they're automated creative systems that allow you to build ads within the app are so easy to use that when I was doing mine, oh God, it's gone on 4.5 years, John. When I was started, I had to do, and I had 100 employees. So I had them do the ads for me. And so I had a whole engine behind me. You don't really need that anymore. At least on paid social media. Both of those engines have, as you target your audience, there are other features that say, hey, let's help you build an ad for free. And they have infinite repositories of stock photography. You upload an image of your book or a chapter or an infographic, and it's a lot easier than it was 5 years ago in terms of like, if you don't have a marketing team, that's not really a big deal. So I would be very direct and say, without question, two of the channels you really want to weaponize are Instagram and Facebook. You can try TikTok. Driving to, I was driving to the Amazon page at the time. To Bill's point, you can use Facebook's advertising, but in the days when I was in 2019, I'll put it delicately, Amazon cares more about making it money than selling your book. So things might have changed. I have not written another book, and I have not sold it on Amazon. Yes, I would test Amazon's digital advertising, but most importantly, what you would on Amazon is get good reviews. So after you write the book, in my opinion, the most important thing is to contact every human being you've ever met that might care about you and not hate you, and have them write a good review. And I think that would be, so that's not an advertising play, and it's under the umbrella of it, but that would be the most helpful thing. Paid ads on Facebook, paid ads on Instagram, try TikTok. Do not worry about LinkedIn. It will set your money on fire. And then I would make sure that the second this thing launches, and I checked Bill's out, and Bill's got a percentage more stars than I do, so I'm jealous. You want, I mean, the key is 50 to 60, but if you can get over 100 reviews, you're doing really, really well. So reach out to everybody and your mother and have them write a review. So those are the to directly answer your question, those are the advertising channels that I pulled that were successful.
That is terrific. And Bill, we know we're going to talk more about how you used Amazon sales. I mean, that was Tom's point, how that program, that, cost per click, et cetera. I want to get into that, but based on what Tom said, I wanted to show you guys something here. Give me a second. That someone who really, she essentially, for lack of a better word, she didn't buy them, but she used a program. Her name is Madison Brightwell, and she used a program called Pubby. And if you guys can see this here, she's gotten,
Wow.
154, and
That's it.
almost all of them have come through that. And
Through an app, you're saying, John? Or
yes, through an app. And I just want to double check this here, guys, because it's on our marketing page. But it has been, we're pushing people over there now, and it certainly makes sense when you see it, you see what she's done, etc. There's Bookshop. Yeah, there it is right there. Pubby. So I do recommend this, that it's something to check out. And the way it works is that you go on, you pay a fee. It's not a big fee. It's a $29 or $30 a month. And you review another author who's on Pubby, you review their book. That gives you a credit, and then somebody comes along and reviews your book. That goes on Amazon. So it's a quid pro quo. Not saying it's the cat's meow or the only way to go. Obviously, Tom, to your point, look, if you can get people that you know and anywhere else to put a review on Amazon, great, do it, wonderful, but it's not always possible.
And those are two different things. One is paying money to get people to go to a site where you can buy it, and the other is when they get there, do they want to buy it? And they want to buy it because if it has more than 4.5 stars, they'll buy it. If it has less, they won't. Or 4.3, whatever it is. But that didn't exist 5 years ago. So that sounds awesome.
Yeah. Danielle, what's next?
Well, Tom, you kind of already mentioned this, but Bill, what was the biggest bang for your buck? Was it also, did you try Facebook, Instagram, and social media, or were you focused all on Amazon?
Yeah, I tried it all. I think the social media you choose should align with your target audience. So my book's towards business people, and most of that's LinkedIn. I don't actually I've tried spending money on LinkedIn. It did not help. I just put things out on LinkedIn. You can do it for free. I get a lot of response out of that. I'm not sure if I've ever gotten a sale out of it, to be candid with you.
Yeah.
But in my world, LinkedIn's a big deal, way more than Facebook and things. But that's I'm a business guy, right? So that's where I go to get my social credibility. I also have advertised on Instagram and Facebook and TikTok. And I've done it where I've boosted them and things like that. I don't know if it works. I have a very small following on each of those. I've got about 8 or 9,000 on LinkedIn, which is considered to be probably middle. But then it's just a couple hundred on Instagram and the other thing. So for me, that hasn't been a big piece on it, and I don't have the energy to be constantly posting on Instagram and Facebook, mainly because I don't use it that much myself, right? So, but now if I was writing a certain kind of book, Facebook or Instagram would for sure be in that, right? The second piece from that is if you want your book to be found through a generic search on Amazon, all those ads you see are all sponsored. 100% of it. So you don't notice it, but 100% of them are sponsored on it, and it just gets you a view. And you have to be careful. I the first month I wasted a lot of money. You don't have to put a lot of money into it, but you have to be thoughtful about how you do it. But the ads make a difference on Amazon as far as converting to clicks. Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, all that, whatever budget you give them, they will spend. On Amazon, whatever budget you give them, they may or may not spend it, because impressions are one thing. Someone actually has to click on it. So you may or may not spend your daily budget. And a lot of it's tied to what they call ACoS, which is your average cost of a sale and where you want to be at on it. And are you trying to grow brand awareness or not? So I'm not an expert on it. I can only tell you what I've done. Someone like Tom here would have way more experience on it. But I find the Amazon ads to be very effective. I find for me putting it on LinkedIn, but I don't need to spend money on it at all, to be very good. And then what Tom said, and I think John said, the most important thing you need is social credibility, and you get that through your reviews and people putting something on there. And you basically do everything from begging and pleading and sending out free copies and call your mother, call your friend. I mean, whatever it is, whoever you have any power over, any social credibility, anybody, like your kids, like if you give them money, they should put one up there. So all that stuff counts, right? Now I've done all that, and it gets low. So I have 247 reviews now, which is pretty good, I think.
Awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah. So, but most of that is me
Really good.
whining and crying and begging and trying different. I tried Pubby. I didn't do enough of other people's reviews, so they didn't do enough of my reviews.
Yeah,
So
that's the downside of it.
it's
You
a lot of
have to-
effort on it.
Yeah, it's effort, and not everybody's into that. And by the way, I tell authors, see if this rings true, Tom, Bill, that they need to get those reviews, and once they hit, maybe 25, there's thresholds, 25,
50. It's
50,
about 50. It's about 50.
Okay.
You hit 100 and you're cooking. You're cooking.
And that's going to get you in those lineup ads that, Bill, you're talking about, that say, oh, if you read this, you may like these.
So
Yeah, when you go on and look at a book now, because I do it all the time, I'm addicted to looking at it. It'll tell you other books that mine are recommended with, right?
Yeah.
At the beginning, it does it. So if you're buying this, you should look at this book. And
hey, I got to jump in. Bill's right off Amazon, but I'm going to respectfully disagree with him about everything else. And again, Bill, only because the only thing I know about it is digital marketing. You know more about everything else than I do. I only know about digital advertising. I wrote one of the textbooks that bore college students about digital marketing. LinkedIn is irrelevant. It doesn't matter that you think LinkedIn's for business and Facebook's not. That doesn't matter at all. And I can say this and I've had this conversation 600 times, and not about this stuff, with CEOs and CMOs across the planet. It is irrelevant what you think people are reading it for. The eyeballs matter. If I know someone is interested in buying a book about business or whatever you wrote a book about, I don't care if I found them on the Goodyear blimp or Facebook or Instagram or TikTok. The reason LinkedIn is a dumpster fire is that its creative and targeting is horrible. Do not advertise on LinkedIn, period. You can post things for free with your followers. I've got 15,000 followers on LinkedIn. Of course I posted stuff, but I didn't pay any money for that. You don't spend money on LinkedIn, number one. Number two, when Bill said he boosted ads on Facebook and Instagram, that's not what I'm talking about. Boosted posts are not paid advertising. Yes, you pay some money for it, but that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about when I say paid advertising on Facebook and Instagram, I mean you are going into Meta and you are building campaigns yourself. You're not writing something and then boosting it. That's not digital advertising.
You're talking about cost per click or pay per click, right?
Correct. Correct.
Okay. Yeah.
And it can be on a CPM, it can be on a CPM, a cost per milli basis, cost per click. It can be on a cost per acquisition basis, which Bill, what you were talking about, I don't have an acquisition cost and you better target this. So when I say completely ignore LinkedIn from a paid advertising standpoint, you can spend money on LinkedIn if you want to set your money on fire. I would write a post on LinkedIn to your followers. That's free.
Yeah.
But I would spend
You know,
money.
I think what I heard and the way that we talk about, I agree with you, by the way, Tom, but LinkedIn is solid and worthy to the extent that if you have some people in the field who are going, what the hell is Bill Canady doing writing a book? They're going to go look you up on LinkedIn just to see. You're right. It's not
that's
an
free.
ad, it's not a
That's
sale.
free.
It's
Yeah.
just
No,
CV.
Yeah, no, do that.
I feel like you're holding back on us, Tom. You should tell us how you.
I get spicy when it again. When we're talking digital advertising, I get spicy. But again, if you're going to deploy your precious capital, Meta and Amazon.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Well,
to your
like
point,
I say, I can only tell you what's worked for me. So
but Bill, your reviews, how many do you have? 200 or something?
yeah, 247 according to.
That's a lot.
Yeah, that's
good.
stellar. That's really
Did
good.
you, and you used Puppy?
I didn't have any success with it.
Huh.
The problem
it was,
Bubby,
it was you grinding. It was you just calling friends and being like, "Hey, do me a solid."
Well, you know, I'm CEO of a couple of companies. I have lots of employees, and so I ask people to do it. You use the resources you
I
have.
love that. You want a good performance review next quarter? Do I have a book for you?
It's not quite that way, but
Yeah, I'm
you know,
sure
sometimes
it's
people
not.
are nice.
You
Tom,
son of a gun.
this is how, you know, how Bill's mind works too, because he's got some companies and is involved with companies in Europe. We talked about foreign rights. That's a case where definitely who you know, helps. And that's, by the way, we need to talk about that later, Bill, just to see, you know, I want to try to make that happen. German, French versions of your book. Okay.
Hey, Danielle, there's some other questions. There's a really good question about book marketers. Jeffrey Schmoll sent that.
Our paid book marketers recommended how to find a reputable one. We have people all the time asking us about publicists and PR people, and they can charge you quite a literal arm and a leg. Did either of you use a company, a publicist, a marketer, anybody?
So I hired two. I hired the best in the world, and then I hired a woman out of White Plains, New York, single woman PR agency. I forget the name of and it's a big firm. It is we own book marketing. We own book PR. They didn't get me zilch for my retainer. Nada. This one woman in New York State hustled her butt off. And I've been on TV 30, 40 times, national. She did great. So in my opinion, you can never, I've got a good recommendation, but I went with, gosh darn, they're on Upper East Side, New York City, big building. They are the 800-ton gorilla, and they burned through my money, my retainer every month, and they did nothing for it. And a one-woman shop out of White Plains, New York, worked magic. So, but I think it's an awesome question because John, and I'm sure Bill, when you were finishing the book, the big question's all right, we got to get ready for this thing. And I was worried. And I went with the biggest and best, and they just didn't give a shit because I was a small fish.
This is the eternal, one of the big issues with authors is if you're going to hire a publicist. There are some very good ones out there, and they may hit it big for you, but they will burn through your money. There's no question about it.
Yeah.
You guys really did what is commonly referred to as guerrilla marketing to a
Yeah.
certain extent, right? I know, Tom, you hired some people. Bill, you probably used some people, but mostly you did it, you figured it out and did it yourself. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I didn't hire a publicist. I tried a bunch of different things. Like I said, 95% of what I did, I could not tie to anything, right? It didn't seem to matter. For me, LinkedIn was a very good one for me as far as just getting the word out there. That's the space that I'm in a lot. The people I know and the types of people that I do are on that. And then the Amazon ads have been important. I can tell when I increase or decrease, I can see a direct result from that. And then the reviews. So those are what I focus on. I still put out stuff on social media. I still do some things with that. I've tried different campaigns. I just haven't found them particularly effective for me.
Yeah, but you didn't hire a company though, right?
No, but it's interesting. Just given my day job, I'm around a lot of this stuff and see it all. I just didn't think it's effective for what I'm doing. So one, I don't have enough capital that I'm willing to deploy in it. Two, I've talked to a bunch of them, and nothing they said I found to be particularly insightful or thoughtful or anything like that.
Name.
And so I just look, if you're going to do it, and we're small time, right? All of us, I would assume, if you're doing this, you're pretty small time. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here. It's just going to be what you generate, right? We're not going to make Good Morning America. We're not going to do all the shows. Radio, I mean, most people either are doing podcasts, whatever. I do get on a lot of podcasts, but I think that's really more because of my day job. People are always inviting me to that. So I did a podcast that is very, very common. And on that, I always wind up talking about the book. Interesting enough, now that the book is getting a little bit of traction, people are starting to invite me on podcasts to actually talk about the book.
Who knew? Hey, question. This is just, okay. This is good, but you are talking to a brand new author, okay, who's got a book. We're not going to worry about what the genre is, etc. They've never had a book before. They don't know a tremendous amount about marketing per se. They're not. I mean, they have some ideas, etc. What would you tell them to work on first? What would you tell them to concentrate on?
Well, I can go first.
Yeah.
So first, I think you have to write a good book that has some legs. Secondly, I think probably more important than writing good books is having a good cover. I think a good cover makes a huge deal.
Yeah.
The third thing, none of this stuff, it costs you any more money than what you're going to spend so far. The third thing is I would go on and get my Amazon profile filled out as an author. I'd make sure I had all that, get the stuff accepted in there.
That's Amazon Author Central for any author sometimes asks that. That's where you go to fill that out.
I would for sure fill that out. I would get myself a biography created about it. I know, John, you have some paperwork and stuff people can fill, but I would get that done so I could send it out when appropriate. I think one thing that is worth spending money on, I'd do a website for it, whether it's just a website for the book or yourself. You have to decide what it is you want to do on that, but I would for sure have that for it. It's amazing how much that is used and the credibility you get from that. But it can just be a book website. It doesn't have to be anything too particular off of it. So all that stuff I would do. The only thing in there that you would spend any additional money on would be getting website creation. Even if you do it yourself, you're going to have to buy the software and you're going to have to pay some kind of hosting fee or something like that. But it doesn't have to be particularly expensive. Then most of us have some social media thing that we do, whether it's because we're on Facebook to look at our kids or grandkids or our friends or whatever. But whatever it is you're on, I would put that out there as well and let people know from it. then from there, I think it starts getting a little more specific around what, I think one of the things, and Thomas, I'm sure you have experience with, most of the people who are going to reach out and say, hey, I can promote you. I'll put you on my book talk, or I'll put you on this, I'll put you on that. That may be true, but I would look very carefully about what your target market is, and is the people that you're targeting on that. And it's not that difficult to figure out where your target market is and where that's going. And most of us write books, at least I'll speak for myself here, that are targeted people like myself. Right. So I didn't write a dystopian novel for young teens. I wrote a book for CEOs. Right. Guess what I do? So I talk to them, hey, what do you guys look at? I know the stuff I look at, and that's where I put the money at.
Yeah, I was doing this to build. Look, I spoke about the one thing I know better than most people in the world. Number one. Number two, I did it to build a brand. So I gave a shit less about selling to people just like me, or what the book was exactly for, which was important. But the reason I was on, and one of the bigger hits I got a few dozen times, I was on Market Watch in the NASDAQ studios in New York City, when Times Square and all that fancy stuff. And I got to dress up under the pretty lights. That had nothing to do with my target audience. And I'm sure a part of that audience would have read the book, but it was much more about me writing a book, having a website, having street cred, having credibility, being on national media, being on and there were some questions about Goodreads or whatever. I did pay money to have Kirkus reviews read my book. They thankfully liked it and gave me a good review. I think that's worthy, because if they hate your book, you don't have to use it. So I did I do Goodreads? But I did Kirkus? John, which one is it?
It's
Kirkus.
Kirkus. In
Yeah,
terms of
Kirkus-
getting
Kirkus reviews is legit. That is a super legit.
And by
one
the
of my-
way, Tom, do you know that Goodreads is now owned by Amazon?
I'm shocked.
Yeah, it's been that way for a while.
I'm shocked about that. So yeah, I did it for a brand. Yes, I wanted to sell books to the people to whom I was primarily writing it for, but it was part of a larger, big piece of my building a brand and I knew I was going to sell the company eventually. I was going to move on to something next. And that's what I did it for. So it was important to me that any good press, any good media, any good outlet, it didn't really have to, I mean, if they want to talk about my book a little bit, great. But if they wanted to ask me questions about the debt crisis in the European debt crisis, I was happy to talk about that. So anything in the business financial world, whether it's purely digital marketing, I was doing it for my brand. Bill might have been doing it to say, look, I wrote this book for a reason, for these people, and I care about these people. So maybe I think he and I might have had different goals, but I was still trying to build my brand, so to speak.
Got it.
No, we had the same goals, Tom. I think it's true for a lot of people I know who do nonfiction books. It's all about becoming an expert or seen as an expert or whatever it is, around your brand. So mine's exactly the same.
Very cool. Danielle?
We've got a lot of questions. I want to ask one that we did talk a lot about on the last month that we talked to Sandy and Buck, and they talked a lot about speaking engagements. This person's asking, do speaking engagements help sell books? So if we focus just on business books, did you guys do speaking engagements?
It didn't really move the needle, but have a videographer there, get some good content, put them on your website.
Yeah.
Bill, how about you? Have you done speaking engagements?
I've done a lot of speaking engagements. I think if they help to sell books out of it, it's almost an unintended consequence of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Don't
Yeah.
make it
Yeah.
your primary goal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well-
Unless you can get a big enough conference to buy a few hundred, that helps.
That's what Sandy
But-
did.
yeah.
Yeah.
But that doesn't happen all so often.
Yeah, Bill, I always tell authors, don't expect to sell a lot of books. Like if they want to do a talk at a bookstore or an event or anything like that, it is, if you're doing an event to an organization, etc., spreading the word possibly. Hey, what would you guys, I'm kind of curious, what would you guys tell, since you're both nonfiction, you're both business type books, okay? what would you tell a novelist? I mean, what of what you know, in terms of book marketing, what would you tell a novelist? Because it's a kind of a different world, eh?
You first, Bill.
He's
Sure.
setting you up, Bill.
Well, I have no shortage of opinions, so I am rarely correct, but also rarely uncertain. So look, I think my presumption is you've got a couple different kinds of authors in this on the spectrum. On it sounds like the spectrum that Tom and I are on, or some personal endeavor. We have this need either through credibility building or brand building or to get known in whatever we're doing. I saw one question I do when you make money. The way you make $100,000 in books is you start out with $500,000 in book and you whittle it down to 100,000 rather quickly. I'm just making up a number, but my point being is I will never make money out of this book, right? Now I might if I somehow get struck by lightning in the lottery, but there's no intent out of that. And I think that may be true. I have several people I know who've done personal books, right? These nonfiction books around something that they find interesting. And I'm not aware of anyone who's made any money that made it worthwhile. On the fiction side, I would presume it's just the opposite, right? You're putting this story out there. Maybe you have a need to tell the story, but the fiction seems like I really want to be a writer, right? And I really want to tell the great American story, whatever that may be. And it still may be nonfiction, but it's going to be around something, a story that you're telling that you really feel deserves to be out there and all that. And the hope is that it takes off. I think if you're doing that, I think there's a whole lot of things that come into it, but how you market it and where you look at it is probably vastly different than what I do or someone like myself would do off of it.
Yeah. What would you?
Yeah, no, I agree with Bill. I don't want to rehash. I agree with Bill. I did this. Look, I didn't. Break even's fine. I did it from a larger picture, right? This was part of bucket list, wanting to get my thoughts out there, personal brand. It was more than, I think it's more than money, like I'm some egalitarian fairy, but it was, you're not gonna be J.K. Rowling, right? Maybe, but like, whose yacht, by the way, is parked. I live in Charleston, South Carolina. For giant yachts parked in our harbor right now. But it leads to other things. And those are lucrative. I absolutely, without question, without this book, opportunities would not have come my way, which were incredibly lucrative. And so, I think you think beyond the incredible amount of work it takes and process to get to the book. Because there are very valuable things that come from it. I'll say
And
that.
For those that are asking specifically about fiction novels, we do have other authors that have written, fiction books that will be doing webinars in the future. So stay tuned. But these guys are, business authors, so that's their forte.
I just build on what Tom said. It's shocking how many opportunities that have came because of the book. I mean, people just mention it and you automatically get some kind of credibility that probably don't deserve because you put some pen to paper. Right. So it makes you, I think you can write about turtles, you can write about whatever you want. You're an expert all of a sudden. So if depending on where you are in your career and what you're trying to accomplish, if you want to put yourself on a different level, you write a book. And then you do things like you make it a good book and an interesting book and you have good covers and all that, because it probably doesn't hurt you if you have a crappy book, but you want to have something that you're pretty proud of too, I think.
Yeah.
Yes. There's no question. Well, you guys deal with more branding in your world. And it's an interesting question when you talk about that, like with a novelist. Are they doing it? Is there branding involved? And I would say, yeah, just in a different way than a nonfiction business book, etc. What are they trying to get out of it? What is their brand? Is it, well, they're an author, they're trying to become a better author, they're working their way up, they want to sell more books and do more events, etc. So I think it is branding as part of the deal. Danielle, what else you got?
Back to digital ads. Someone is asking, how do you measure success or track ROI on your marketing spend?
Easy through Meta, very, very, very easy. Nearly impossible through Amazon. They intentionally don't tell how much money you're making because they're assholes. They look, they want to keep you in the dark as much as possible and believe that they deserve their 30% cut. They are a black void of data, to include even actual telling you how many books you sold. So you're never going to get return on marketing investment data from Amazon. You're lucky if you're going to get blurry smoke signals. But to the pound, penny, and Deutschmark, you can understand exactly what your return on marketing investment is from Instagram, Facebook, etc.
Cool. Cool.
Bill, you did have
But
success
again-
through Amazon
but
because I
again-
know
but
that
again,
I did.
we're not
My
doing this-
opinions are so different than Tom's. So
I think, yeah, because I've seen that Amazon now does show you, you get
shows me everything.
impressions versus clicks versus purchases. So
What you
taking
spend, they
their
give you
cut.
all the data. So
but
I
they're
found it
taking
interesting.
but they're taking their cut.
They don't take
right,
any.
you still get your royalty.
Yeah, they don't take any cut any more than anyone else does. Kohler gets his cut. Everybody got to get paid. They do work it just off the gross numbers though. So if you sell a book for $7.59,
Yes.
and you spent, your average cost of sale was 100%. You spent $7.59. Well, you have a cost in the book. So the math you'll have to do yourself. But
again, I would urge that if you're getting into this to make money only, you're getting into it for the wrong reason.
yeah, you're probably going to be deeply disappointed if this is the revenue stream. I don't know about fiction, but look, when I did the numbers, the average book that is sold out there, and this is, John, you would have much more, is about 2,000, 2,500 over the life of a book, right? And when you think about the money you put in this and your marketing and everything, it's time and all that. What are you going to make off of a book? $5. So so if you don't have the bigger picture, prepare to be disappointed, right? If you're looking for, like as Tom said, credibility, brand building, make yourself seem an expert, on and on and on, it works really well. I cannot tell you the amount of opportunities that have come so quickly about it. And you'll be in some room and they'll say, oh, well, this is the expert. How do you, well, like I read his book and I agree with it. So that does give you that for sure.
Yeah. I think that's a really good point. And I've had that conversation with many authors who, some of them would say to me when we're first talking, I gotta make at least 10 grand with this book. And then at that point, I just go, listen, you don't want to do that. Okay.
Prepare to be disappointed. So
prepare to be disappointed, but it's the wrong attitude to go in. But I do like, I'm going to think about this. I'm going to write about this. The idea of branding, especially for novelists. What does that mean? It's not the same, but it kind of is for you guys, on the business side, that they are building a brand with their book, not just talking about monetary, but talking about who they are and how they're seen,
a lot of things, just building on that, John, like if I had a fiction book or a nonfiction book, but I thought it was applicable across a lot of places, things out there today, one of the big movers is book talk, right? You hear about it all the time on TikTok, and there's people who are selling hundreds of thousands of books on there, right? Maybe that's where you should go. So for me, that doesn't feel like a spot for me for a whole variety of reasons, but there's so much out there that if that's where you want to be, you got to figure out how to go. You got to get yourself on there. To go on TikTok costs you nothing. To go on Facebook, we all get the accounts free. If you want to do marketing and all that, there's some money involved, but you can do so much by just being present, doing the videos, making them clever, making them interesting. You just have to do the stuff yourself, right? And the tools are remarkably easy to use. It's also kind of exhausting. You can get on a little bit of our hamster wheel where you're like, oh my God, right? I tried it. I was like, yeah, this isn't for me. This is, that's not the path I'm going down. So, but if you have that story and you think you have a story that sells well on that, I don't think you have to spend any money on those necessarily.
Very good. Very good.
We've got a question that's asking how to keep the momentum going after so many months or even years.
Just like being married, how do you keep the fires burning, right? You got to pay attention to it and fan them every once in a while.
Well done, Bill. Well done.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I mean, everybody knows that the typical spike, at the launch, it's like a rocket, and then it tails back off and it heads back down, and the hope is to build it back up, right? Tom, what do you think?
Yeah, the one thing that you can eternally do, and you should do every week, is reach out to a new tranche of humans and ask them if they would be so kind as to read some of your book and give you a positive review on Amazon.
That's right. That's right. That's how I got 247 reviews.
The bigger that number gets, the more you're going to sell without you doing anything extra. But that is years and years in, I'm still asking people for reviews.
Yeah, and Tom, to your point, I brought up Pubby. Pubby's not going to work for everybody. Bill didn't like it. I don't think I would like it, but some people do. And that's a way. I showed you Madison Brightwell's. I mean, that's a way to get some daggone reviews, but whatever it takes, get them.
Yeah, I sent out a book to someone. I say, hey, would you mind? And I'll send it to them, ask them to read it, and then ask them to put a review up. I mean, that's, so what does that cost me? It cost me $4 in media mail and the cost of the book. So, whatever that is. So
there you go.
Danielle,
any more questions?
We have the typical, questions about Goodreads and BookBub, which we always seem to cover. Did either of you do BookBub?
I have not done it yet. It's probably the best one out there if you're going to do a deep discount.
I'd have to go. Honestly, I forget at this point.
I think you may have, Tom. I mean, I could look it up.
I know I did Kirkus.
Just so everybody knows, if you haven't seen BookBub or don't know what it is, it's the most, let's say, popular ebook listing company, and what they do.
I did.
Yeah, right. And what they do is that they said they got tens of thousands of readers who come because they know they're going to get quality ebooks at a really low price, like 99 cents. If we did it, Tom, it would have been a 99-cent sale.
Yep.
You pay a fee, $200, $300, $400, whatever it is. But generally, our authors have more than made that back, because you're going to sell a bunch of ebooks, and they put a blast out, on the day that they tell you, and you're going to sell a bunch of ebooks. So that's an option. It's an option. What else, Danielle? We're kind of wrapping up here.
Yeah. I don't know. Tom, you've been scrolling through. Did you see any that caught your eye? I know you answered.
I've been answering. I gave some contacts for that woman that I worked with from a PR standpoint that was successful. A question with the website, like, again, I think if you plan to write a book and not have a website, like, I would strongly advise for this to be the only arrow in your quiver.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, website, yes, additional press, yes, anything where you're getting exposure from a legitimate media source, whether it's about the book or your favorite flavor of ice cream, it doesn't matter, right? And the book is a centerpiece of authority and legitimacy. But if you're not building this around a larger brand ecosystem about yourself, I think you're doing yourself a disservice.
Mm-hmm.
And it's 2025. I could build a website blindfolded in 15 minutes, like with as many of the AI-driven design things.
WordPress makes it easy. Yeah.
Beyond that, but you can build a legitimate website in 2 hours. There's no excuse, right? Yeah, even though Bill and I did it for he and I did it for similar reasons, maybe it's different than a lot of you guys. Certainly, fiction, it still has to be. It has to be more than just a singularity. More than just writing a book. I don't think that would be the best utilization of your time. Those are most of the questions I'm scrolling through.
I'm looking at a couple here. How do you get on Book Talk? You don't get on Book Talk. You make a video and you put a hashtag in that says Book Talk.
You
And
pray.
then that's how it goes. Book Talk is more of a theory than a
You could-
destination.
You could send a book to a reviewer, but I'm sure they get so many books a day that you really got to grab their attention somehow. So,
Start by
yeah.
making your own videos and
Yeah.
So,
be
Bill,
clever.
Bill, help us with this. Quick definition of book talk. What is it? How does it work? How do authors engage?
Well, you probably picked the worst person to ask that, but I'll give you what I know. So, those of you who have TikTok and you can't go to sleep and it's 2 in the morning and you're laying in bed and don't disturb your partner, roll over, open up TikTok and then type in book talk, right in there, search with a hashtag, and everything that's labeled book talk will come up and you'll see it. And all it is there's people now who make a living on TikTok hawking books, right? They'll some pick books to do, and typically they'll pick really famous books. They'll talk about it. That gives them credibility, and then they'll send you an email when they see you've done a book and say, "Hey, for $600, I'll hawk your book for you as well." Right? Some of that goes on, and then the other one is sometimes your book just catches fire, right?
Yeah.
And it gets interesting, and people start talking about it because they're moved by it. Maybe it's something that tells them how to be a better person, live a better life. I don't know, solve whatever problem they're looking for. So there's those 3 ways. That last one's the hardest way. That viral marketing somehow has to get caught on.
Yeah.
But you can
You
do
have
it
no
yourself. You can pay someone.
Yeah, you have no
It's,
control.
I think it's what I've seen. It's big in fantasy, romance, or spicy books, and some self-help.
Self-help
Bill,
is
Bill,
yeah.
Bill, that could be our next collaboration.
Spicy, yeah.
spicy self-help. That's what we're going
Spicy
for.
How many
self-help.
Help.
peppers does it have? Yeah.
And the title is "No One Loves Me Like I Do," and that'll be
On the cover, I'll wear the loincloth. You have the broadsword.
okay.
Great.
All right. All
Hey,
right.
has either one of you guys done an audiobook?
I did. I did my eyes. Yeah,
You
Did
did?
you read it? Did you read it yourself?
I did. Yep.
Very good. That went okay.
No.
Yeah, I've sold just north of 1,000 copies of the audiobook.
kidding.
It's been successful. I would say, so I was we had a big meeting out in Vegas of all places. And so I was one of the keynote speakers there. We had about 7,000 people in the audience. And the people would come up to me and say, "Hey, I got your book on Amazon or Audible. It's certain kinds of book translate well to Audible."
Huh.
Yeah, that's cool. And just so everybody knows who's listening, we don't generally include audiobook in our rights, okay? Which means that the author, you guys can go out and take care of it to different places and get it done.
It'll cost you about $5,000 to $7,000 to get an Audible book done. That's you reading it yourself.
There's a question here, Danielle, is what is pay-per-click? It's just like it sounds. It's for instance, on Amazon or Meta or wherever you are, you tell them how much you're willing to pay. Maybe it's $1, $2, $3, whatever per click. And so when someone, let's say on Amazon, comes and sees your ad that you created and they go, "Oh, that looks interesting," click, that's going to cost you $3, and that will take them to your book page. That's why people do it, trying to
So
sell.
I might be wrong on this, but I never saw pay-per-click on like Facebook or thing. I did some of the ad stuff on there,
Yeah,
and it was
it's-
around exposure and things like that. But Amazon, they can see it. It doesn't cost you anything. If you click on it, you'll pay. And what you agree to pay, let's say you just say, "I'm going to pay 10 cents." There's a range that it could go up or down, and you kind of determine whatever that range should be off of it.
Hey, Bill.
The 99% of Facebook and Instagram's revenue is, and again, pay-per-click is a bad terminology because it could actually be on a cost per milli basis or on a cost per acquisition basis, or it can be on a different targeting basis.
That was what I
CPC
saw
is the
there.
umbrella term. CPC, cost per click, paid advertising, is 99% of their $25 billion a quarter of profit. So what you're talking about, what most people talk about is, I'm going to type something to my 800 friends on Facebook, and then I'm going to boost the post, and it's going to reach another 2,000. What I'm talking about is completely different. It is the art and science of legitimate going in the back end of Facebook, the back end of Instagram, selecting the target, selecting the cost per click, selecting the budget, selecting the daily pace, selecting the day parting, selecting the audience, selecting the ad itself, selecting the rotation, selecting the frequency cap. Again, this is this little tiny world I live in. But yes, boosting posts on Facebook is not what I'm talking about. It is paid advertising, which is very similar to the paid advertising that goes on Amazon.
Yeah, good. All right, folks, we have got to shut this down. I think that, and by the way, Bill, Holly Kirby has indicated that she'd love to have you on her podcast.
Someone was their favorite.
I know it happens, Tom.
Like,
I'm
I'm happy to do it, Holly.
but we'll try to hook you up. And everybody, sorry we didn't get to your answers, your questions. We'll try to do a better job of that next time, because there's some really good questions here.
Yeah, as mentioned, we do have fiction authors who are going to be in the lineup in the coming months. We are also thinking about potentially doing webinars in the writing/editing sphere, maybe like how to get an agent. We can even talk more in depth about author websites. I used to build author websites for a living. So if anybody has suggestions, you can feel free to email me, Danielle@coolerbooks.com. And otherwise, just be on the lookout for upcoming webinars.
Yep. Thank you. Many, many thanks to Bill and Thomas for being here. You guys are great. We appreciate you. And everybody else, have a great day. God bless. Good day.
Thanks,
Good evening,
everyone.
everybody.
Yeah.
See ya.
See you later, guys. We'll catch up.